it is possible for an adult and a child to have a sexual relationship and for it to have positive outcomes on the child as well. That is possible.
You know, there's pedophiles, right, who buy child pornography. Would you say they should not be held responsible for doing that?
Yes.
Really? Even though they're directly supporting child rape?
Yeah.
Today's video is one that is long overdue. We're going to be talking about one of the three musketeers of the online radical left, Fat Ian Kaczynski, also known as Vaush. I've seen plenty of talk on X about what Hassan and Destiny have been saying about the Charlie Kirk assassination. I'm sure many of you have already seen these clips that have been making the rounds. If you haven't, here's a little preview.
Not exactly like...
You need conservatives to be afraid of getting killed when they go to events so that they look to their leadership to turn down the temperature. The issue is right now, they don't feel like there's any fear.
These people have played a formative role in Charlie Kirk's situation. He has played a formative role in his own demise by playing a part in a media landscape, in a media environment that normalizes this death and destruction.
But seeing all that got me wondering, what has Vaush been up to the last couple of weeks? And, well, it's exactly what you would expect.
Charlie Kirk was a hate-mongerer and fascist who weaponized every tool given to him by a liberal democracy to remove that liberal democracy. He was openly dishonest, preached hate, and celebrated the violence of people, directed against people who were political enemies.
I am sure that the vast majority of you watching already know who Vaush is. But for those 5s and 10s of you out there who are either not familiar or just not privy to this side of the internet, let me briefly fill you in. Vaush is a left-wing debate pro with currently 565,000 subscribers on YouTube, making him one of the most prominent left-wing political commentators on the platform. He is commonly known for his defense of lolicon and his admiration of horsecock. I wish I was kidding. The last time this guy's name was in the spotlight, it was because everyone was talking about how he had leaked his hentai folder live on stream, showing the world that he in fact had animated child porn and bestiality on his hard drive. So in other words, he is your average neckbeard leftist. He is also widely known for clips like this.
Should consuming child porn be legal? I think that would be, yes, more legal and more ethically consistent. Yes, 100%.
And this.
What if CP is free? If you're not paying for child pornography, then there is no argument in favor of morally condemning people who get it.
And this.
Stroking as hard and fast as we can, and then after we nut, we go back, look over our history chat, and we go like, oh, geez. Oh, boy. Some of these girls looked pretty young. Okay, I don't give a fuck.
Now that you're all caught up to speed on the background of Fat Ian Kaczynski, we can continue. He uploaded a video titled, "Please Stop Trying to Whitewash Charlie Kirk," uploaded 3 days after Charlie's assassination. This video is pretty long, so I'm gonna chop it up a bit. If you think I'm taking anything out of context, feel free to check the video for yourself. The link will be in the description below. In this video, he's reading a New York Times article titled, "Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way," written by Ezra Klein the day after Charlie was killed.
Wrong. You can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and the following statement is still true. Kirk was practicing politics in exactly the right way. No, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's true at all. I think that both the content of his politics and the way he engaged in them were wretched and evil. He was showing up to campuses and talking with anyone who would talk to him. Yeah, like the way YouTubers do. He was one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion. No. He would post edited compilations. He deliberately went out of his way to challenge uneducated, non-media trained college students. He's received a ton of media training. They haven't. And even then he would edit around them to make sure he always looked good. He was disingenuous and bad faith all the time. He was not out there seeking honest debate. What kind of insane grift, what lie is Ezra Klein trying to push here? To insinuate that Charlie Kirk was engaging in good faith here.
Now, I'm not here to sweep for Charlie Kirk. I also gotta say, debating college students is not all that Charlie Kirk did. In fact, he had a 2-hour debate with Vaush on Tim Pool's show just a few years ago. He had many debates with self-proclaimed intellectuals from the left like Sam Cedar and Hassan. He went on Jubilee and debated 20 leftist influencers, including Dean Withers. He recently had an hour-long discussion with the governor of California. What more do you want from the guy? You're gonna tell me that Gavin Newsom doesn't have media training? To pretend as though all Charlie Kirk did was ambush college students is ridiculous. But thirdly, Vaush throws around the claim of bad faith arguments to anyone who debates him at any time. Essentially, if you call out Vaush for any of his retarded takes, he will say that you're acting in bad faith. But he isn't acting in bad faith when he calls you a Nazi or a fascist or a racist somehow. That's him acting in good faith, actually. Make sense? It has become a meme with this guy. Everyone has pointed it out a million times. If this guy is losing a debate, he just whips out old reliable, bad faith. Now you're acting in bad faith. Look, if we're gonna be super honest and be in good faith, I think it is fair to say that Charlie Kirk was essentially a propagandist for the GOP. Nobody who was paying attention would dispute that. His entire company was created to get college students to vote Republican. He wore the red elephant like a sports jersey, but the only universe in which that would be considered evil is in the fucked up, twisted mind of a fat, degenerate communist like Vaush. Because to this idiot, it is impossible for anyone who is ideologically right-wing to be a good person.
Do you hate black conservatives?
I hate conservatives. Do I hate black conservatives?
How about black ones?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I do love all people, but I hate black conservatives and white conservatives.
Why do you hate black conservatives?
I hate all conservatives, but black conservatives, because they have the gall of being conservative while having experienced more apropos than any other group in this country what it means to be under the heel of a white supremacist state. It seems to me they're the ones who should have the greatest interest in voting against it.
The next thing that he says here is probably one of the funniest copes I have ever seen. He tries to make the claim that the only reason Charlie got big crowds was because everyone that attended these events secretly hated him and just wanted to debate him.
When the left thought its holds on the hearts and minds of college students was nearly absolute, Kirk showed up again and again to break it. No, college students are overwhelmingly left-leaning. Charlie Kirk got a lot of attention at those change my mind college meetings because everyone there disagreed with him. What the He went over there to rabble. This is like arguing that Milo Yiannopoulos is like the ultimate advocate for free speech, because when he would go to Berkeley, everyone there hated him.
He is unironically trying to claim that Charlie's crowd was only made up of haters. As someone who attended one of these events late last year, I can tell you there were a lot of people in MAGA hats, and they looked pretty excited to see Charlie.
This was not all Kirk's doing, but he was central in laying the groundwork for it. I did not know Kirk, and I am not the right person to eulogize him, but I envied what he built. A taste for disagreement is a virtue in a democracy. Insane take. Absolutely insane. Like, you might as well argue that the brown shirts were advocates of a free society because they freely participated in the right to protest and organize. Just like a laughable... I don't believe Ezra Klein actually believes this. I have to assume it's lying. You would have to be either very low IQ or very uninformed to think that Charlie Kirk was engaging in anything even approximating free discussion with an interest in promoting liberal values.
This is what happens when you never actually go outside. You hide away in your dark live stream and feed yourself comforting lies to avoid the fact that your worldview does not actually reflect reality. College-age men shifted almost 20 points in favor of Donald Trump from 2020 to 24. In order to pretend that Charlie Kirk and his organization had nothing to do with that is being willfully ignorant. You can see him literally seething. I can't even tell what he's so angry about exactly, but if I had to guess and put my little investigator goggles on, I'd say it's probably the fact that Vaush is the exact same age as Charlie and yet has done nothing but become a laughingstock on the internet. Charlie Kirk built an organization which actually had a real world impact, whereas this idiot just sits behind a screen and compares him to being a brown shirt. Here's the thing, even if you believe that Charlie Kirk didn't enter the arena with a goal of finding understanding, but instead was an advocate for his own worldview, that doesn't make him a bad person. It still takes courage to go into a crowd of people who Vaush claims all disagreed with him and hated him with the intent to debate his political opponents. That is literally all that's being said in this article. Ezra was not saying that Charlie's opinions are the correct ones. He isn't saying that Charlie was a master debater, but that he had guts to confront his political opponents in open dialogue. And yet, Vaush can't handle that. He cannot stomach the fact that someone from his own side would give Charlie such a basic compliment.
We can live with losing an election because we believe in the promise of the next election. We can live with losing an argument because we believe there will be another argument. No, that is not how politics works. Not only is that not how liberal democracy works, that's not how politics works. Politics isn't like an epic chess game where after you lose, you shake hands and go for another round. It's actually like a life or death battle every time.
What the fuck does he mean that isn't how a liberal democracy works? That is literally the democratic process in a nutshell. You have elections and term limits, and if the current regime fucks up, you vote them out in 4 years. Isn't that the system he claims to be so worried about losing? Or is it only considered a democracy when his side wins? This idea that politics is life or death is antithetical to the idea of a democracy. We actually have a system of laws and checks and balances to make sure that politics isn't a life or death situation. But I guess if this is the type of rhetoric coming from the left constantly, it's no wonder why we've had an act of left-wing terrorism every single week this month. Their audience seems to unironically agree that politics is a life or death situation, and they are willing to spill their own blood for it.
Political violence imperils that. Kirk and I were on different sides of most political arguments. We were on the same side of the continued possibility of American politics. No, you were not. Charlie Kirk is explicitly anti-democracy. He was an open, avowed Christian nationalist who supported anti-democratic policies. There's no ambiguity here. He wasn't dog whistling. He was really open about it.
These people will never learn, will they? This is why the left is in a perpetual state of decline. Nobody takes this rhetoric seriously anymore. For someone who bitches nonstop about other people being bad faith, this is the most bad faith depiction of Charlie Kirk's beliefs I've ever heard. Do you want me to prove it to you? Well, Vaush claims that Charlie was explicitly anti-democracy. Okay, he was, but not in the way that Vaush describes.
Yes.
Where is democracy mentioned?
I don't.
In the Federalist Papers, the Constitution, or the Declaration?
I think it's good that this country has moved away from things that were
So
explicitly believed by the founding
in the Federalist
fathers.
Papers, and it's mentioned negatively as a problem. So you ask me, is democracy a fundamental American value? I say no.
Okay.
Because I go back to our roots. And
Do you?
Hamilton, Madison, and Jay.
Oh, I know that
spoke-
Hamilton was anti-democracy.
No, no,
like
well, hold on,
these
let me
people
finish.
thought that people should be
But
owned as
I want to be
property.
clear. I am pro-representative government.
Okay.
But I'm not pro-democracy. That's a big difference, and that distinction's important. But you asked very specifically about democracy, which is
Okay.
not an American value. It never has been and never should be, because what is democracy? Democracy is majority rule no matter what. That there's no provisions of checks and balances, no inalienable rights, no separation of powers, pure if the majority gets it, the majority wants it as quickly as possible.
I don't advocate pure democracy. I do understand that we live in a
Cool.
representative, like we live
Got
in a
it. So
republic, and
believe
I
in
understand these things.
representative
Yeah.
government.
Okay.
And you might say I'm splitting
Well, I
hairs
would-
on words, but
yeah.
I'm not.
Charlie had this debate multiple times with people about the distinction between a democracy and a constitutional republic. Became sort of a meme in the right-wing world to distinguish between these two types or forms of government. Charlie was not anti-democracy in the sense that he was against representative government. He just didn't believe in mob rule. But Vaush will never clarify that. He will instead lead his audience into believing that Charlie was some sort of authoritarian who wanted to usher in a Donald Trump dictatorship. He says that Charlie Kirk was an open Christian nationalist. Well, here's a clip from 5 months ago where he denies that exact claim.
Got a couple questions.
Awesome.
That's all right. So I'm particularly concerned about your brand of Christianity. As a Christian myself, Christian nationalism I do not agree with at all. I think it's antithetical to the values of the early church. And I think, how do you reconcile especially white Christians in this America, marrying politics and power with their faith in this country?
There's a lot there. I've never described myself as a Christian nationalist. So I'm a Christian and a nationalist, so I've never used those two
And
things.
then right there, that and nationalist, where in the scriptures does a Christian...
Well, thank you.
supposed
Jeremiah
to be-
29:7, demand the welfare of the nation that you are in, because your welfare is tied to your nation's welfare. Let me continue. Daniel fasted and prayed for his nation. Esther and Mordecai cared for their nation. They were counsel to the king.
Right.
Nehemiah, Jeremiah, Joseph, Jacob. I could keep on going. Moses, Aaron. In fact, Moses was so political that he wrote an entire book of the Torah all about how to set up a government. It's the book of Deuteronomy.
He says that Charlie Kirk was a hate mongerer and a fascist who lied all the time without showing a single clip or example to back up those claims. I mean, it only took me a couple of minutes to debunk the other two careless lies, but really, it doesn't even matter to these people. They have already crafted a narrative in their minds that conservatives are all evil, and so they will always assume that no matter how good a right-winger sounds, they're always secretly concealing their more sinister intentions. It's how a schizophrenic sees the world, frankly. I get that this is a clip from a live stream, but if you're gonna throw around claims of someone being a Nazi or a fascist and anti-democratic hate monger, you should have at least one example ready to go, like he did in this clip from the day that Charlie Kirk was killed.
Oh yeah, hold on. I have to play the fucking clip, man. After a lunatic with a hammer broke into Nancy Pelosi's home and attempted to assassinate her, instead viciously clubbed her husband.
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com, I'm looking at the New York Times, I'm looking at all these places, and there's a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly?
He's smiling.
And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area, he was a vile piece of shit who delights in murder. He loves suffering. He loves death. It's how he makes his money. Made his money. Sorry, I got to get used to the past tense. What has happened today is nothing more than a broad extension of what he advocates for. Wants to really be a midterm hero. Someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions. I wonder what his bail is. They're going after him with attempted murder, political assassination, all this sort of stuff. I'm not qualifying it. I think it's awful. It's not right.
He says, like, grinning, you know?
But why is it that in Chicago, you're able to commit murder and be out the next day? Why is it that you're able to trespass, second-degree murder, arson, threat of public official, cashless bail? This happens all over San Francisco, but if you go after the Pelosi's, oh, you're let out immediately.
Yeah. So again, just always keep this in mind. Never, ever, ever. I think that broadly, what happened today is bad because I don't like political instability. You know, accelerationism aside, I guess more of like a descriptive state of the world, like the only way out is through, the world is going to get worse before it gets better kind of way. I still don't like the world getting worse.
Destiny does this same exact thing every time there's any mention of violent rhetoric from the right, which is basically to talk about the attack on Paul Pelosi. I want to say really fast that this clip that Vaush just played was 52 minutes into the Charlie Kirk show. Much earlier in the show, he had this to say about political violence.
The new conservative movement does not endorse political violence. We don't tolerate it. We don't put up with it. We denounce it. But we also take a pause and we say, the media is probably lying to us. In fact, why is the media not saying that this person was a nudist, pro-hemp, BLM flag waving person who lived in a gay neighborhood in Berkeley, who was also schizophrenic and obviously not sane? Why is that not being communicated in the articles?
Weird how they don't show you that, huh? For those of you who don't know the context or maybe have forgotten, when Paul Pelosi was attacked, the facts were very murky. None of what we were told made any sense, which is why Charlie was making a joke about some patriot bailing him out to ask questions. We were told that either one, if not both, of the men were in their underwear and that both men answered the door when the police arrived. Paul Pelosi made the phone call to the police and referred to the attacker by name and called him his friend. And if that wasn't weird enough, when we did learn a little bit about the attacker, We found out that he was a drug addict and nudist living in a trap house in Berkeley with a BLM banner and a pride flag out front. There's also testimony from the guy's neighbors saying that he wasn't MAGA at all, and the fact that San Francisco is notoriously soft on crime, which is why Charlie says conservative rhetoric wasn't to blame. So I gotta ask, this is really the worst they have? This is what makes Charlie a vile piece of shit, according to Fat Ian. A selective clip from a 2-hour live stream. Well, I want to play that last part again because it really says a lot about the type of person we are dealing with.
Yeah. So again, just always keep this in mind. Never, ever, ever. I think that broadly, what happened today is bad because I don't like political instability. You know, accelerationism aside, I guess more of like a descriptive state of the world, like the only way out is through, the world is going to get worse before it gets better kind of way. I still don't like the world getting worse.
What Vaush just said right here is that he does not have an in principle objection to murder. He's only against the assassination of Charlie Kirk because it could cause political instability. Saying that is like saying, I don't really have a problem with rape, I just don't want to hear her bitch about it later. Vaush is only concerned with how Charlie's murder will affect himself, not how it will affect Charlie's wife, Charlie's parents, Charlie's children. He isn't concerned that a young man's life was just taken from him, a man who was the exact same age as him, for using his freedom of speech to say something someone else didn't like. And I'm supposed to believe that Charlie was the vile piece of shit, right?
The same is true for Shapiro, Hoffman, Hortman, Thompson, Trump, Pelosi, for Whitmer. We are all safe, or none of us are. Thank you. Great. Phenomenal. Great stuff, really. And as always, I suppose, a reminder of how useless and feckless and inconsistent liberals are when faced with an existential threat to their democracy.
An existential threat to our democracy. The democracy which obviously only exists when Democrats win, of course. A couple of final thoughts here before we wrap this up. I have been thinking about the so-called far right for a little bit. I'm starting to believe that its ascension and normalization of ideas is really the fault of this sort of antagonistic name calling that Vaush and all these other leftist idiots still seem to do. Because by calling basic conservatives Nazis, they aren't alienating Nazis, they're alienating themselves. The tent of which the left considers to be Nazis is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year. Now, if you're a normal person from 15 years ago, you might not have in any other context associated with anyone further to the right of you, but now that the left has put you in the same box as the most radical element of the right wing, it's likely that you have now brushed up against those types of people, those types of creators with those types of opinions. And now, with a newfound sense of sympathy given to that, the left has unfairly persecuted you as well. And I'm not making an ought claim. I'm not saying that this is how it should be. But what I am saying is that this is kind of just how it is. People are more likely to side with those who are nice to them than people who share a similar ideology but actually hate them. Because when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, ideology doesn't mean much when the people around you wish you were dead. We've spent this video going over the radical left's reaction to Charlie Kirk being killed, but I want to show you this. This is a literal Nazi. And this is his reaction to Charlie being killed. I want you to tell me who is more tolerant and who would you rather have speak about you at your funeral?
I didn't agree with Charlie on a lot of things, and to be perfectly honest, I feel bad for making fun of him some of the times that I did. God forgive me. He was a good man, despite all the political differences and all of his views that I might not have agreed with. I know deep down he was a good man. Rest in peace, Charlie.
I can't deny it.
Cheers, man.
I thought of quitting, baby.
I'm not gonna lie, I am fucked up about it.
Just ain't gonna buy it.
You be the judge. I think that's all I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to tell me what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.